Welcome to the Soul Body Wholeness Podcast.
Each episode is a living, breathing transmission. Together, we will explore deep, nuanced, and controversial topics of the soul. Welcome to your community of sensitive seekers and deep feelers.
Welcome back, Goldsbrand. What up, beautiful humans, people listening or watching the show? Today's episode, I just finished a conversation with a cool guy, very special guest. His name is Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, and I'll read his little bio here. So Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards is an international speaker and author with a PhD in spiritual counseling. Born in Blackpool, UK, and now based in Florida, he has spent a lifetime exploring love, transformation, and the mind-body-spirit connection. His book, The Venus Flytrap, is a raw, fearless, and often hilarious journey through passion, chaos, and self-discovery, inviting audiences to embrace their flaws, release shame, and lean into the beautiful madness of being human. So this was a cool conversation. Stephen's, media person reached out to me, and I read the first few chapters of the book, and it just so happens that he was in Sarasota, and the book partially takes place in St. Petersburg. At least at the beginning, there was a major scene in it. And I was just like, wow, what a coincidence. I'm in St. Pete, if you didn't know that. So that was cool. And yeah, I appreciated Stephen's realness. There's a realness and a humanness to him. And for him, writing this book was liberation. It was him coming forward with a story about, it's just a crazy story, but also just all of the dimensions and qualities of his personality and his desires that he had hidden from close people in his life. And yeah, just the process of that and the humanization of the spiritual experience and the spiritualization of the human experience is essentially what this conversation is all about. We talk about relationships and, what's revealing as some of the new and, in my opinion, improved templates for relating with one another and coming together as an opportunity to awaken and enrich each other's lives versus depending on another person to complete us in some way, feeling that wholeness and that completeness before engaging and dating and loving with another intimate human. And there's a lot of nuance in that, but that's the overall theme in some ways. And we got to hear a lot of his stories, details. I had fun. I hope you have fun listening to it. It's quite enjoyable and diverse, and that's enough yabbering from me. I love you. Enjoy the episode. All right, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, or as you are fine with being called, just Stephen. Welcome to the Soul Body Wholeness Podcast. I'm really stoked to get into this conversation. I feel incredibly curious. Your media person reached out to me and shared with me your book, or at least the first 3 chapters. And I was pretty, mesmerized that we're in the same area of Florida. That's pretty strange. Yeah. And 2, I wish your media person had just sent me the whole book, because it did what it had intended to do. It hooked me and I want to know more. So I'm really excited to dive into what feels like, somebody who has a lot of depth and probably, higher chakra spirituality, but it sounds like you have a whole lot of human experience, like real raw human experience. And I love the connection of those two. So, first of all, welcome to the show. How you feeling today?
Thank you for the. You're supposed to get the whole book. So we send the whole book
Ah,
to the
come
podcast,
on.
right? But we give away the first three chapters. It's a promotion. So you might have used the
Right.
link we sent you. But when the media kit, the whole ebook is in there, man. So anyway, you
I
can.
didn't do my homework properly.
Well, anyway, just make sure it came is what I was going to say, because if not,
Okay.
we'll send it again. No problem, man. Yeah, but you you need to have the whole book. I mean, nobody's going to read the whole book, but you can serve through it more, right? Than just the first.
Right. Right. I am interested in acquiring, a physical copy because that's how I like to read. So we can talk about that at the end. But
Right.
yeah.
We could go down.
So
We could go down to Cassis and have a coffee, and I'll bring it over.
I would love that. Yeah. I want to
Maybe.
go to that. I want to go to that that hotel you talked about at the
Yeah,
beginning. It
the
sounded
Birchwood,
really
yeah,
rad.
on the main strip. Yeah, for sure. It's really
Yeah.
nice, and they got the upstairs. The upstairs bar. What do you call it? Yeah. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Cabana,
Well, the cabana's up there too, but what do they call it? It's rooftop bar. There's a name for it anyway.
rooftop
Yeah,
bar.
yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna volley to you and I'm gonna ask you currently, how do you serve people? Like, before we get into your story, I'm curious how you currently are serving people. I know you've worn a lot of hats in your service. And so where are you at right now with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I do a lot of things, and I wear a lot of hats. So there's not just one thing that I do, but focusing on what I'm here, to really to talk about today is, I wrote this book. I mean, I had this experience, right? I wanted to write the book for some time, and I didn't for certain reasons. One is it's a very sexual book, right? It's very sexually explicit in parts, right? So it's difficult to do that if you're in a relationship with somebody, right? And you're writing this book about this situation, and then you say you're going to go out and promote the book, and most women are going to go, "What are you talking about? That's not going to be okay." So anyway, so that was one of the things that stalled me a little bit. But the point is, I had this experience, and as I'm writing the book, it was really cathartic for me. And this experience gave me one of the greatest gifts I've ever had. And I've worked for Tony Robbins and a lot of these amazing gurus. I've done all this work for 30 years, everything from breath to vibration, all that stuff. And this experience gave me the greatest gift of all. And that's a big thing to say, because all those things had a profound effect on my life. So why? Because it gave me freedom.
Mhm.
Because, like most people, we have these skeletons in the closet, right? That we don't want people to know about us because it could ruin our identity, our image, how they feel about us, and we might lose those things, right? So she gave me, she's very authentic, right? You can read that from the book. She's taking those prisoners, right? This is who I am. If you don't like it, screw you. Which is attractive, right? Because we all want to live that way, right? We all want to be our authentic selves. And so she helped me to be vulnerable, because she was very vulnerable. So when I write this book, I just lay it all out on the line. I mean, everything from my mental illness from when I was a teenager, getting put in an asylum, electric shock treatment, going through all the humiliating things that I went through in my life. I just put it out there, right? Because it's also a part of the story. And as you and I both know, a lot of what we experience later in life, the patterns are born out of our childhood. But anyway, this is the long answer. But the bottom line is she gave me freedom, because now I can be my authentic self. Because, I mean, what are you going to say about me that I haven't already said, right? I put it all out there in a book in front of the world. So, and that's very liberating. Now, just to put that into context, as going through the work that you do, it's all layered, right? You're not going to go through one experience and then go, aha, I'm enlightened. You just get further along the journey, right, to remembering who we are. And there is a multitude of ways to do that, as you well know. But what I would say, although I'm definitely not there yet, I don't think we ever fully get there, but I'm a lot closer than I was before I had the experience. So I'm very blessed that I had it. I'm not going to say that throughout the experience I kept saying I'm blessed, because it was a rough ride, right? It was like another dark night of the soul, right, when I'm going through it. But as with everything, you know, no one forced me to be in it. I was very happy to be in it. I mean, I'm with a, you know, 5'11" supermodel, right? You know, in a sex room in the mansion. I'm having a blast, right? As well as the crazy shit that went on, you know, trying to put me in jail, trying to steal my house, all that stuff went on with it as well. So it was up and down, kind of like our personal mental illnesses. We were both put in an asylum when we were teenagers, right? So she had the same experience. So, which is compounding the realization that we were mirrors of each other, right? We're mirroring back each other. And I think, you know, these are the kind of things that other people get out of the book, because what they tell me, oh, I see, I did that, and I got in a toxic relationship. I didn't know how to get out, and all this stuff. So how I'm serving now is by making this book available for people to look at and see themselves if they're there, you know, have an opportunity to realize that what they went through is not probably unique. They're not alone, because when you're in those things, you can really feel alone, right? So we're creating a community where people can feel safe, they can be who they are, and they can reveal those things. Now, you know, not everybody's going to get on there and start telling the world everything that they've ever done or has ever happened to them. Some people will just be viewers and listeners to begin with, but they're going to feel like they've got a community they can be with. And of course, some people will be spilling the beans like crazy, right? So that's a community, right? So create a community where we can do that and reveal parts of ourselves that we may be ashamed of, fearful of other people knowing about us. And if that happens, you're in a prison. You think those walls that we build as a child when we go older are protecting us, and they're not. They're imprisoning us. They're stopping us being who we are, which is, you know, through the work you do, that's what you're helping people do, is let go of that energy, because people think, well, I'm just angry, and if I push it away, it's gone. And as you know, it goes into the cells of our being, and it's going to stay there until we release it, right? And so helping people on that journey. Anyway, as you know, I can talk a little bit. So that's my answer for now.
Well, I encourage your voice to be expressed, and I also, you know, I really resonated with your humor in the book because that's what I bring too, and I think as you're speaking to creating this community of, you know, acceptance and shared reality where it's like we all were in the dark with the thing that's the same. Part of that is just being multidimensional, polarizing humans. Like, yes, I can access transpersonal, I connect with God every day. I hold profound space. Like, I know I have that in me. And I have a fucked up sense of humor sometimes. Like it's dark, it's absurd, and it makes me feel so good. And when I find the people in my inner circle, um, man, like we laugh so hard. And I'm feeling the collective shifting to that's not just being acceptable anymore. It's actually magnetic and attractive to be a polarizing human. And yeah, it's such a rich topic, but I also wanted to kind of double click on that. You know, it's reminding me of, do you know who Malidoma Somé is?
No.
He's a very prolific West African spirituality teacher from the Dagar lineage. He's not in the physical form anymore, but he has this quote that was super powerful for me to hear, basically saying that until a person is able to be witnessed in their pain or their shadow in community, they will take on the identity of a victim in order to attract the attention for it to be seen. And so it was like, I knew that in some level, but the way that that was worded was so beautiful for me. And it sounds like through your book, that's what you're doing. You're allowing a person to even be seen just by seeing you and feeling that shared resonance.
Yeah, see, exactly. So one of the things, Tony Robbins, so I spent a lot of years working with Tony, and he gave me a belief. I say he gave me, he put a belief in my head. Here's the belief, go take it home and enjoy it. No, so, so I adopted this belief, right? and that
Mhm.
nothing happens to you. Everything happens for you. Now, it's easy to say that, right? But living it is entirely different. It's easy to say that, when things are going right, yeah, everything happens for me, right? But when you're going through the deepest trauma, the most difficult periods of your life, it's easy to fall into a victim mentality. No, no, listen, let me tell you, she definitely did that to me, or he did that to me. How could you possibly say it happened for me? But if you really get into it and you dive into it, you always get the answer of why it happened for you and not happened to you. It's been my experience anyway, and I had some pretty crazy shit happen. So that changes everything. You can't be a victim anymore. It's impossible. Because if you go, yeah,
Mhm.
you know, she did, well, maybe she did, but who cares? You drew it into your life. It's reflecting you back at you, and it's happened for you. So you can stay a victim if you want, but it'll just keep repeating itself anyway. Or you can make a decision to find the gift in it and move on, right? You know,
I
so
I 100% agree that you're speaking to what I call a higher truth, right? Like, and you you have to be open in a relaxed state and not in the victim to be able to receive that truth. And I also feel like one of the gifts I give people are tools and spaces where they can act out the victim and let it alchemize. It becomes like it actually becomes fun. Like, I imagine you've played around with a lot of this too, like, in the bedroom and everything else. It's like, finding the spaces where you can really like be in the victim, but not so hooked that it becomes your daily existence, and it allows that energy to move, because the higher truth is, I 100% agree with you. Everything's happening for you, and the universe doesn't necessarily give you what you want, it gives you who you are. And that's one of my favorite quotes by Michael Beckwith. And
I love
so
Michael Bay.
I'm
I
with
used to go
you.
to Agape all the time. Yeah, that's awesome.
Really? That's
Yeah, yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
go.
Actually, I went on a 7 day retreat with him out in California. Yeah, 7 day
Cool.
total silence, man. It was interesting. Yeah. So when you mention about humor and you make a, you talk about people being in the victim mode because almost everybody falls into it at some point. So
Yeah, of course.
I'll use humor to break the pattern. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
me too. Yep.
So they'll say, well, they did this to me, they did that to me. I said, well, did you call the police? And you see, they laugh and they go, look, and then you can go from there. So let me give you an example of how this belief worked for me in the story, right, of the book. And it's a true story. I had to change it from memoir to based on a true story because my attorney said, listen, as a memoir, come and prove that it isn't true. When you write it based on a true story, you're saying, take this journey with me. And based on a true story allows you to be flexible in some of the story, like names of the people, the circumstances, so that you don't identify somebody. That it wouldn't be easy for someone to pick up the book and say, well, that's this person or that's that person, both from, protecting the innocent, of which there aren't any, but also protecting people's privacy and staying out of jail. So there was a lot of things that were components in that. But otherwise, the story is 100% true. So anyway, we're at a point in this relationship, which was insane, as you'll get to see when you get the rest of the book. And we broke up all the time, right? It was very volatile. So anyway, so we're at this point, we're broken up, and I travel 4 days of the week, right? I go out doing speaking events. And she would travel with me a lot of the time. But anyway, we'd fallen out. She'd gone to, run off on a 7 day binge, stolen my car. God knows where she was, right? And I'm out on a 4 day trip, right? So she comes back, knowing that I'm not going to be there. She comes back to the house, and she'd left windows open so she could get in and out whenever she wanted to, whether I threw her out or not, right? So anyway, but I'd closed them all. I didn't even realize I'd done it. So she's locked out. So she breaks in, right? There's no stopping her, right? But she's going to do whatever she wants to do. She breaks into the house. The alarm goes off. The police come out hot because of certain things that had happened in the neighborhood and they'd been slow to respond in the past. They're going, we're going to show you now, right? So there was like 6 squad cars, 2 SUVs, and police dogs that are running around the area. And it's at night, right? So the sheriff calls me, right? And he says, listen, she's here, right? She wants to get in the house. Yeah, yeah. Whatever you do, do not let her in. Do not let her in that house, right? Listen, I just been on the phone with the chief. I had to call the chief because they'd been there so many times already. right? And they said, listen, we keep coming out here all the time. Obviously, she lives here. The chief says we got to let her in. And I'm like, no, right? So now I come back after being away from 4 days, and I'm like, this house is going to be smashed to pieces, right? So I come in, and everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm like, this is weird, right? So I go in the kitchen, I put on the kettle, right, to have a cup of tea, because that's what we do in England when we have a little bit of a problem, right? Stress relief, right? So I turn the kettle on, I go out, come back, hasn't boiled. So I go to the kettle, look behind it, she's cut the wire. She's cut the
Oh,
cord to the kettle, right? Now I immediately know at that point that is not the end of the story, right? That's not. She didn't stop cutting the cable to the kettle, right? That's not going to be any kind of punishment, right? So now I go around the house. She's cut every cord to every
oh my
electrical
God.
in the house, right? And then I
Oh my
go,
God.
yeah, that's not going to be either, right? So when I was a kid, I my mother used to send me to school in school clothes that were like 5, 10 sizes too big. Some of them would still fit me today. So I became a fashion clothes. I was buying my own clothes when I was 9, right? So clothes are very important to me and part of my identity because I always wanted to look good. I always wanted to look immaculate, right? You might have gone to the same school. I don't know. But anyway, um, so now I'm making millions of dollars at that point. I have a nice wardrobe, right? Off the chain, if that's even a phrase anymore. I don't know. But anyway,
Off
so
the chain.
I get to the closet and everything looks fine. Oh my God, thank God, right? So then you go and put the clothes back. She shredded everything, right? She's cut everything, right? Pockets, lapels, everything, right? And all the shoes, right? Everything. Now, at that point, obviously at that point, Joshua, I didn't say, well, it's happened for me, right? Fuck that. I was pissed, right? I was mad as hell, right? So anyway, when I finally
We,
calmed
we
down,
we would call that bypass if you went
there you
straight
go.
to
Yeah,
the
yeah. If I had spoken to anybody at that time, I would have called
if
over
that
and I would have gone.
moment is not
I would have
is
gone. I
not
would
the
have said,
moment for the high truth.
yeah, I was in with the low truth. So anyway, if I'd have called anybody at that point, I would have said, listen, that belief about nothing happens to you, that everything happens for you? They go, yeah, I would have gone, it's a fucking lie. That's not true, right? So anyway, by the time I calmed down, so I sit in the armchair, I'm looking out over the lake and the pool and everything, and I go, okay, this is going to be fucking good. How has this happened for me, right? You start asking, I have this conversation, of course, right? So the first thing that comes up is, which is going to sound stupid, it's weak. You go, well, it's only clothes, right? So then your mind goes, they were fucking nice clothes though. What do right? So you got to go deeper, right? So finally I got it, right? I go, I think they are part of who I am, and they're not. I am far more than that. And it's time to come out of that belief, right? I don't need the clothes. I am who I am, right? And I've known that, but sometimes you don't realize that you're doing things that you think you don't do. But anyway, that was just the beginning. And then it just
So at
got
that moment, you came out of the closet.
twice, actually. Yeah, twice. Because I had two closets. Anyway, so anyway, but that was the beginning of letting go of everything. And
Yeah.
I made a lot of money because I was doing what I love to do, and I wasn't doing it for the money, but it was a nice little bonus, right? But
Yep.
without realizing, little by slow, I had become more attached to the material world, and I knew then it was time to let it all go. So I did, and I let go. I let go of the cars, the house, everything. And what I came to realize even more, and this would be something I would say to people all the time, but I wasn't living it, right? That less is more. And I would tell
Hmm.
people, listen, the reason they're possessing your energy, they take tremendous energy to get them, to maintain them, and to continue to replace them, right? Because everything, you got to change it. You got to change your clothes. You got to change it, everything. So anyway, letting all that go again was another part of me getting my freedom, which she gave me as a result of this experience.
Yeah, that's a profound moment, is that realization of the attachments. And I'm curious if there's more you could share on the process of, of course you realized it, but it's not like just Okay, now I let it all go and I'm good. At least for me, it's like, I've always had a history of pulling the Band-Aid off super slowly and feeling every nuanced crevice of pain. So I'm curious, how that process was for you.
Yeah. So I was trying to have brevity by just saying I ended up letting it go. But you're absolutely right. It was a process, right? It wasn't an overnight thing at all because the attachment is deeper than you realize, even when you start realizing you have it, right? So the close was one thing. You know, I, I got it, right? So I wasn't getting it for, I mean, I could have, I could have turned it into a Hugh Hefner mansion, right? Could have if I wanted to, but that just wasn't me, right? I was married and I wanted to enjoy it, but I thought that's where we would live forever, right? That was going to be my forever home. As my marriage was going to be my forever marriage, but both attachments, memories, all that stuff. So it wasn't easy to let go of it. And, as you start to let go, you go through a process. And part of it is, you justify still having it, right? You go into like, well, maybe I could just have the house, right? Whatever it is, right? Well, I do like it. And same with the cars. But the cost of having those things, my freedom, was more than it was worth to me at that time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it probably took 3 years, right, for that whole thing, that process to break down. It was not overnight, as you correctly say. Um, and even letting go of her, Joshua, wasn't an overnight thing either, right? 3 years, right? Of sometimes going through hell, right? And other times in heaven, just unbelievable joy, happiness with her. But in the end, the hell was more than the happiness, right?
What up, beautiful humans, people listening or watching the show? Today's episode, I just finished a conversation with a cool guy, very special guest. His name is Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, and I'll read his little bio here. So, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards is an international speaker and author with a PhD in spiritual counseling. Born in Blackpool, UK, and now based in Florida, he has spent a lifetime exploring love, transformation, and the mind body spirit connection. His book, The Venus Flytrap, is a raw, fearless, and often hilarious journey through passion, chaos, and self discovery, inviting audiences to embrace their flaws, release shame, and lean into the beautiful madness of being human. So, this was a cool conversation. Steven's, media person reached out to me and I read the first few chapters of the book, and it just so happens that he was in Sarasota, and the book partially takes place in St. Petersburg. At least at the beginning, there was a major scene in it. And I was just like, wow, what a coincidence. I'm in St. Pete, if you didn't know that. So that was cool. And yeah, I appreciated, Stephen's realness. There's a realness and a humanness to him. And for him, writing this book was liberation. It was him coming forward with a story about, it's just a crazy story, but also just all of the dimensions and qualities of his personality and his desires that he himself had hidden from society and hidden from, even close people in his life and close people in his life. He had hidden from close people in his life. And yeah, just the process of that and the humanization of the spiritual experience and the spiritualization of the human experience is essentially what this conversation is all about. We talk about relationships and, what's revealing as some of the new and, in my opinion, improved templates for relating with one another and, coming together as an opportunity to awaken and enrich each other's lives versus depending on another person to complete us in some way, feeling that wholeness and that completeness before engaging and dating and loving with another intimate human. And there's a lot of nuance in that, but that's the overall theme in some ways. And we got to hear a lot of his stories, details. I had fun. I hope you have fun listening to it. It's quite enjoyable and diverse, and that's enough yabbering for me. I love you. Enjoy the episode.
And this is the first book of 3. But later on, it comes out that I had no choice in the end. So the decision was even taken away from me. Why is that important? Because sometimes relationships come into our lives to teachers. We have master teachers that come into our lives, and that relationship is never meant to work. It never came into your life for that purpose. It came into, say a reason, a season, a lifetime, to give you what you need to align yourself more with who you really are and then be gone. And, one of the things that, you and I both enjoy and get fulfillment out of helping people, right? Of being in service. But sometimes you feel that your purpose in life is to rescue, save, and fix people. So she taught me that that's not true. When you do the work and you have success, you start to think you can heal everybody, and you can't. There are some people here who are not supposed to be rescue, save, and fix. So she was telling me that you don't need to rescue me. You don't need to fix me, right? You're never going to do it. And eventually you're going to give up. And I realized it wasn't necessarily giving up. It was eventually just coming to the realization she'll never be rescued, saved, or fixed, because she's not here to do that. She's here to teach, to be a master teacher, and to attract people in her life, into her life that have these frailties that she's going to mirror back to them and help them heal, which is a huge sacrifice if you think about it, right? Because in our natural state of being that we're not humans having a spiritual experience, we're spirits, right? And that when we're in our spiritual state, we are fully enlightened. Every one of us at the same level of enlightenment, right? So, and we make choices to come into this existence, right? I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Little Soul and the Sun.
No.
It would be a great tool that you could use in your work. It's written by Neil Donald Walsh. I know you heard of him, right?
I've heard of that name. Yeah.
He wrote the books Conversations with God. It's amazing, right? So he definitely...
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this.
He was definitely talking to God. Amazing. But anyway, one of the stories he tells in one of his books is this story. And now he's made it in, not now, 20 years ago, he made it into a little book for kids. And it's called The Little Soul and the Sun. It's just a beautiful story about this little soul having a conversation with God. And the little soul runs up to God and says, God, I think I know who I am. And God said, you do? Well, who are you? And he says, I am the light. And God says, that's right. You are. You're the light. Well, I'd like to experience something I'm not. Could I do that? And God says, well, you always were the adventuresome one. He goes, yeah, you could do that. He goes, well, what is something that I'm not? And God says, darkness. Ooh, what is darkness? What is that which you are not? You'd be surrounded by darkness. And the little soul says, will I be afraid? And God says, only if you choose to be. So then this little soul says, okay, that's problem number one. We got the darkness, right? And then he goes, well, I'd like to experience, because God says, what part of yourself would you like to experience? And he goes, I'd like to experience forgiveness. Would that be good? And God says, oh, yes, that would be good, right? But then there's now. And God said, well, there's nobody to forgive. The little soul experiences sadness, right? And then this other little soul pops up and says, I will do something for you to forgive me for. And the little soul says, you would, but why would you do that? You're this perfect point of light. Why would you slow your vibration down to such a point that you would do something to hurt me? And the little soul says, because I love you. Right? So then he said, the other little soul says, all I ask is that when I do this thing to smite you and hurt you, that you remember who I really am. And the other says, yeah, I won't forget. And so they run down to earth to have this experience. And God calls after them, always remember, I have sent you nothing but angels. It's a cool little story, right? And I said it as fast,
Yeah, I love
I
that.
said it as fast as I could because I was trying to give brevity to it. But it's a beautiful story, man. And so I do try and
No-
look at. I'm not saying I'm always successful. I think about it later, and that's what I think about Tamaz. She's that soul that came into my life as a master teacher to give me what I needed. And of course, we all know we asked for it, right?
Yeah, to give listeners a little bit of context, Tamaz is the woman of the story of the book. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
a
I
lot
met
of
I met her when she
richness.
was living in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, which is where I'm at,
I know,
which
right?
is just,
It's a good job you're
you
leaving.
know,
I'm kidding.
it's synchronicity, and at this point, my life is starting to feel like one elongated synchronicity, so it's
It
not
is. It
surprising
is.
at
People
all.
said I'm experiencing synchronicity. Everything is synchronistic if we can just see, right? And that the more we raise
Right,
our vibration, the more synchronicity we experience, right? Until it just becomes one
absolutely.
event. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so, a lot of my podcasts, I talk about the soul and the reasons that we come into this incarnation and all of that. Um, I want to sort of funnel that towards what you were getting to at the end there and talk a little bit about relationships and what you spoke to. I fully agree with, and I think could be so supportive for more and more people to understand and accept as a new way of relating with people, getting out of the mindset of like success or fail dependent upon if the relationship is happy and it lasts forever. It's like you just pretty much setting yourself up for failure, number one. Because how often does that happen?
Yeah.
And
Well,
number
my parents were married for 63 years. So, but that doesn't mean anything, really. It wasn't a,
Right.
it
It
wasn't
it
a happy marriage, right? It wasn't a happy marriage.
right.
And, it's pretty much a miracle they didn't kill each other. But, first of all, as you know, you got to define what you mean by happy, right? And you
Totally.
you also got to say, what am I? I was going to say, what am I prepared to put up with? What am I looking for in a relationship? And what are your? I'm trying to think of the right phrase. You can probably think of it better than me. What are the things that are not non-negotiable, right? Non-negotiable.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you, and I'm curious just your experience of this. I went through a very initiatory relationship. It was a part of my whole life coming apart and my roles dissolving and getting a very clear message that it's time to sell all my things and leave my community and leave my business and just go into the unknown. And a part of that was um, a nearly 4-year relationship coming to an end. And it was extremely initiatory. Like there was so much deep love and passion and joy, and then so much mirroring of an unbelievable amount of unconscious material in even 4 years, like ancient, primordial, playing out the collective distortions of the masculine and the feminine and possession and jealousy and rage and all of these things that I did not know that were inside of me. And then I've been on this journey for about 3.5+ years since then. And again, having an unbelievable amount of processed, embodied spiritual experiences, which have completely changed me at a cellular level in relationship to intimate relationships, where I feel like I'm embodied in what I call sovereignty. And for me, sovereignty, this is my own definition of it. I feel my primary relationship is with my soul and with God and myself, just like at such a deep, fundamental, loving level. And I feel so fulfilled by that. And I'm not, first of all, I'm not even like seeking anything outside of me, like partnership wise. I do seek relationships, but they're very present moment, and I'm surrendered to like whatever's coming up. And if I'm guided to go into a deep, more monogamous container with a person and long term, I'll totally surrender to that. But I feel, you know, talking to people about what do you want? Who do you want? Before they connect deeply with themselves and have a really loving relationship with themselves, their spirituality, nature, all of the good stuff. I feel like that is one of the fundamental mistakes of relating. And, it's asking people at a level of consciousness where they don't even really know what they want at a soul level. They're like, just, I want this, this, this in a partner. And they're speaking to things that they're incomplete in themselves. And they're hoping this other person will complete them. So I'm curious your thoughts on all of that.
Okay. So I have a lot of thoughts on that. We could be talking for a
Hmm.
long time. So, and these are the kind of conversations I would have with Tamaz all the time. She was super intelligent, very intelligent. Her father's a genius, right? He's cracked the genius code. What do you call it? The genius mythology? No, not mythology. What's it
Oh,
called?
what I do, genius frequency.
Genius frequency, yeah. But I think he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
born. But anyway, so he's a billionaire, right? So, but she got those genes. She's just super bright. Unfortunately, she tends to use it for destructive purposes. But the bottom line is, so we would spend days in that sex room. And you go, what were you doing in the sex room for 3 days? Well, a lot. And a lot of it didn't involve. Anyway, the bottom line is we would spend time in between sessions playing backgammon. That became, and you know that from the book, right? It was the first date we
Yeah.
went on with playing backgammon because I knew that from before I met him. So anyway, we would sit there and we would just be talking about everything you could think of. Obviously, sex came up a lot. Our sexual fantasies, all about monogamy, and she's bisexual, right? All that stuff we talked about. And so, and she would like, and she meant it. She wasn't joking. She's saying that, well, monogamy was one of the causes of most of the problems in our world. And I go, okay, you're gonna have to explain that to me, right? She said, we're not designed to be monogamous. We're animals, right? We're not designed to be monogamous. It's your choice. But to live in a society that forces upon you is not healthy.
Hmm.
Because your natural state of being is going to cause you to be resistant to it. Because anytime you're told you have to do something, it's in our nature to not do it.
Can anyone relate to that?
Right? And I said to her, wow, I thought it was just me. So right? So it's about having the freedom. If you tell someone they have to do something, they're gonna, resist it. So anyway, so she said it's not a question of whether monogamy is right or wrong for you. You got to make that choice. But if it is your choice to be monogamous, then you got to say it. And if it isn't, you got to speak up too. Because if you don't say that to your partner that you do, right, and then you're going to end up cheating on that person, right? And then they're going to find out, and now you're in a real mess. Because if you're married to them, you know what's going to happen now, right? You know what's going to happen, right? So that's number one about monogamy. It has to be a choice. I prefer monogamy because I'm very intense, Joshua, right? So if I get in a relationship, I'm full on, right? I don't have the time or the energy to be in another one, right? So that's just me. But that doesn't mean it's right for everybody, right? And that's how I wanted us to be. But, she, from the very beginning, she never said that she was going to do that. So and in the end, I had to accept that. I mean, I did along the way. I mean, she had relationships. She was having relationships outside of our relationship. And people say, why did you put up with all this stuff? And I go, well, look, let's think about this for a minute, right? I could have broken up with her. No one was forcing me to stay, right? I made the choice, and here's how I made the choice. Yes, I could let her go. My life could be boring again, right? Or I could be spending time with this former international supermodel who is sex addicted, right? Addicted to me, a lot of fun. We would go all over the place and just have, I called it madness and mayhem. Some of it was very close to getting us both put in jail. But anyway, we had a blast, right? We had a great time. So yes, there was the downtime. Yes, there was the negative. Yes, there was the madness and craziness. But I made the decision. I'm willing to put up with it for now. I know it isn't going to relationship, but as low as the lows were, the highs were high. And my personality is I'll take the lows, give me the highs, right? It's always been that way. I've always been a risk taker. I've always gone for adventure, and it hasn't always worked out well. Sometimes it's been not just years of really tough times. But for some reason, I've always looked at it and said, well, I've always come through it. I always come out of it. And the highs that I had, the great times that I had doing that were worth it. And I would not want to look back on my life and just say I lived a very mediocre life. There was no ups or downs in it. That's just my choice and how I view things, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I can certainly resonate and relate. And yeah, I guess I feel curious to sort of circle it back to, like, what are your thoughts when you're coaching people, supporting people, when they say they have a desire in a relationship and or they have like a dream partner, they have something, and you sense that, you know, they haven't maybe connected with themselves very deeply. Like, do you see that often? Or is it like, you're here to just help them, wherever they're at, if they want the partner, if they want the person, like you're kind of supporting them on that trajectory.
Yeah. Well, first of all, probably like before I get into doing any kind of guidance, coaching, whatever you want to call it, the client has to prove to me they're serious. I'm not interested in surface work, right? Doesn't excite me, doesn't interest me, right? I said, you got to show me, prove to me that you're really going to commit to this process. What's the process? I can't tell you. It's just going to evolve along the way. I'm an artist, right? So I'm going to pick up on what you need from your energy intuitively. And then I'm going to provide you with the tools. I'm not going to do it for you, but I can provide you with tools that I know will work if you use them. But that's all up to you. And they go, wait a minute, I'm paying you. Isn't that enough commitment? I go, listen, you pay to go to the gym and you never show up. That's not a commitment, right? You've got to prove to me that you're serious because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste mine, right? I'm at that point in my life where I have 100% success ratio. And that's not because I only work with people I know I can be successful with, right? I couldn't just take anybody and help them, right? I got to take someone who's really committed and I feel intuitively that they'll do the work. And I want you to feel the same way about me, that I'm going to be able to give you the tools and, really feel it, right? You talk a lot about intuition. We've all got intuition, right? But some of us have not really used it, are not very good at using it and don't believe in it. And we don't realize we're feeling it. So it's like playing a guitar and you're going to strum the strings and feel it as it is with intuition. So, yeah, the first thing we should all do, Joshua, is we should work on ourselves, right? Because if you're not going to be healed and you take that into a relationship, what's going to happen? It's not going to work, right? There, you're asking for problems, but convincing people of that is not easy, right? Because we didn't grow up. Most of us didn't grow up in an educational background that was going to say, okay, we're going to the healing class right now, right? There was none of that there, right? And you're younger than I am, but I certainly don't know when I was growing up, that wasn't there. They didn't care about emotions or feelings or any of that, right? My era was where the album by Pink Floyd came from, The Wall, right? Building the walls, right? So, but that also means that I have to be able to relate to people from different generations, right? And what's important for them. What's important to young people today, we didn't even have, back then, didn't even have those things. So it's all relating to the individual and what the individual needs. And some of them, I did a lot of breath work, and I'll say, I can recommend a good breath worker that can really help you. I'll recommend someone that does Reiki or whatever. So it's whatever the person needs to whatever module, whatever modality you want to think of. They're going to go, what the hell is that? What? No, that sounds a little woo woo for me, right? So you got to hit people where they are. But in terms of getting into a relationship, I say to people, listen, the best thing you can ever do is work on yourself before you get in a relationship. Take some time, just like you did. Not that you weren't ready to be in a relationship, but you took time for yourself to be with yourself, to not be reliant on another person, another relationship. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody should go travel the world for 3 years, but they do need to spend some time on their own, right?
I am. Go leave. Do it now.
Leave the
I'm
kids.
totally
The
recommending
kids
that.
will be fine. Don't worry about the kids.
Yeah. They'll be all right.
That's right. Listen, they'll do them good. Yeah. Well,
It will.
it might do, but you might have a hard time convincing a woman with 3 kids.
The Buddha, Siddhartha, left his newborn baby to go find enlightenment. So,
Yeah, I know.
you
And
could
then
use that as a justification.
yeah, you could. And then he also says, because she went to school, and she didn't like it. And he said, well, why are you at school? And she said, what do you mean? He said, I never told you to go to school. It's a waste of time, right? But she was ready to ask the question, right? He said, you'll learn
Right.
more outside of school than you'll ever learn in that place.
Hmm.
And she said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, I don't give unsolicited advice.
Have to be invited.
You have to be invited.
So yeah, that that's a really important point. The spaciousness in between relationships, which I know is so very difficult for a lot of us, and it was for me until this last one. I mean, it was very difficult this last one, but like I didn't really do it until this last one, like from my teen years, and I was married very young. I was married at 21 and then split up by 22. That was the longest I had had a gap, and it was like a year, and that was very powerful for me. And then I got into dating again, and that continued. And I would always tell myself, and this is an interesting point. So I would always know this mentally that I need more space in between the relationships. I need to come home to myself. And it's not like I would go out dating. It's ridiculous things would show up, like, the woman just asking me out, who's like my dream girl or whatever. I'm like, that never happens any other time except when I'm trying to be on my own and exert this will. And I always, quote unquote, failed. But when I look back, the universe was actually
Yeah.
providing me what I needed another fiery lesson. Like that's what it was. And until I had learned the deep, deep parts of all the fire of my last relationship, then the universe is like, cool, we're not gonna like keep throwing all of these temptations at you. There was a point where celibacy and just being with myself was just supported by the universe. It was time.
You were
So,
ready.
like,
Yeah.
nothing I could do could even bring me a woman at that point. I was so on my own and it was really hard. But it's just like a nuanced thing I like to share with people is like, yes, we mentally know these things. Yes, we quote unquote might keep failing and not doing them, but in the end, there might be a grander plan that your soul is navigating you through of more fiery lessons as you went through in your book.
Yeah. Well, so there's no such thing as failure. Even Tony Robbins talks about that, right? You only fail if you give up
Yeah.
or you don't try,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise you're making distinctions, you're learning and growing. So I think it says this. I went through 4 marriages, right? So I was going for the world record. But I stopped. But the point is, what I realized in the end, Joshua, and we're all different. But society tells you should be married. You're never going to be happy if you don't have kids and all that. It's total bullshit, right? It's not true for everybody, right? It could be true for you, and
Right.
that's okay. But I was falling into that social expectation. But for me, as I realized the pattern, um, first of all, people say, "You're married 4 times, dude. That's a lot of marriages, right? That's without all the girlfriends. Jeez, you know." So 4 marriages, and they'd say something like, "What was wrong with all these women?" And I would go, "Listen, man, it's a simple matter of mathematics, right?" "What do you mean mathematics?" They go, "So there's 4 marriages. In all those marriages, there's only one constant. Me, right? Just me, right? So what do you mean? What's wrong with you?" Well, first of all, there's a lot wrong with me. But second of all, there are some things that are not wrong with me, but I was doing the wrong thing for me. I'm not. I tell people now, I'm unmarriageable, right? I am unmarriageable. Now, unfortunately, I figured that out later rather than sooner. But what that means is, in my spirit and my soul does not want to be confined, right? I have to be free. And so, what I recognized, what I saw in relationships, what I felt in relationships, was being confined. They became limiting. When I would get in a relationship, no, what do they call it, the honeymoon period, right? And everything's going great. She's perfect. I'm perfect, right? And then something happens. You can make some funny things about that. But then something happens and you're not perfect anymore, right? Or she's not perfect anymore. And the next thing that starts to happen is you start to take each other for granted. You start out, if you start out together, you're in the middle of the room. And then slowly but surely, the distance comes between you. And then you're screwed. So my average time was 5 years, right? And then I would just go, I can't do it anymore. I just got to go. And so now my boundary is I'm never going to, obviously, I'm never going to marry again. What's the point, right? But I wouldn't get married anyway. I will never live with anybody again. Like you, I've been on my own for nearly 4 years, right? And I have no desire, like you, to get into a relationship. I'm open to it, but I really don't go out anywhere, so it's probably not going to happen. I'm being defensive on that one. But anyway, if I got in a relationship, fine, but we'll never live together. And in order to keep that honeymoon period alive, we just date. We live in our own home. We see each other maybe once or twice a week. We're excited to see each other. We've got lots to talk about because we've lived our lives. We're doing our thing, right? Whatever that is, that mission, our vision, our purpose. And then we come together to enjoy each other, right?
Hmm.
But that's what I've realized about myself. Doesn't mean I would say somebody else should do that. That's just what's for me. Like you decide to just up and sell everything and go running around the world for 3 years. Not for everybody. But it's what you were doing was what was right for you, right? You knew intuitively that's what you needed to do for you. And so I think, what we're doing is helping people find out what's right for them, right? And live their best life.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Rather than have to live within the confines of what society says they should do, right?
Yeah, and what's beautiful is that we can support people to do that by just being ourselves unapologetically, writing your story with all of the flaws and craziness and yeah, I mean over anything that the collective says that this person should be doing for their health or for their whatever, whatever the doctor tells them. Like I'm in that much trust with inner truth over outer truth, and I'm here to support people who wanna live their lives that way.
Yeah. And so when you're in that place, your body tells you what it needs. It tells you
Totally.
you're drawn to those things that are going to be right for you. Everybody needs to say, the latest fad in nutrition. It's not for everybody. We all have different biochemical bodies, right? So you might have a deficiency in one area, and then you take it a pill because someone told you should take that pill, but it's actually feeding something that you don't need supplemented, right? And then you can get sick off that, right? So yeah, you got to listen to your body and notice how it reacts to things. Notice how your body reacts, right? Some people just take something; they're not in tune with their body. They just take it and they don't feel anything, right? Because they're disconnected, right? I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the myriad of programs and vested interests in keeping us disconnected from our body are mind-boggling, to say the least, once you start pulling back the thread and researching these things. And at least for me, I got to a point, it's like, I don't need to keep pulling back the thread. Like, it's fucked up. I don't need to know all the ins and outs. I know I need to come back to myself and connect to my body and my truth and connect to God um and just this, because I used to yo-yo for years and years, have big that anymore, because of the practice of, no matter what, I do something to remind myself of my light. And it's not bypassing, it's just connecting to a higher frequency and bringing that frequency, that the parts of me that are incomplete, the parts of me that are in the illusion or depressed or anxious or whatever the things, like always doing that. And that source is from within. It's not turning on the computer and researching, how can I feel better? And, like, everybody's using ChatGPT as their therapist, and it's a whole weird
or
thing
marrying
going
Chat
on right now.
or marrying Chat GPT. Well, what you was
Yeah,
you go in and out. So because it's a wave. Everything is a wave, right? Frequency is a wave. Vibration is a wave, right? So I had a couple of times I had an experience of Satori. So you know what Satori is? Yeah.
do you want to
So
explain it a bit for the
yeah,
listeners?
there's a great story about a young guy. He's a Chinese guy. He's working in a laundromat, a laundry shop, not a laundromat. So he's carrying a basket of laundry through the store, and suddenly he has this boom, Satori, right? Full enlightenment. And so he goes through this experience, and it lasts a few minutes. And then it ends, and he picks up the basket and just carries on. Right, you're going to stay in that experience. You're going to come in and you're going to come out. Even when you read the stories of the deities, read stories about Jesus, right? He came in and came out of it. The things he would say, sometimes he was here and sometimes he was here. Sometimes he was gonna beat up all the Pharisees. I mean, wait, whoa, what are you talking about, right? Part of the experience, and the idea, hopefully, is for you to stay closer to that experience, and the waves become a little calmer, right? As you go through life, uh, which and then you get to a point like Rumi or some of these other amazing deities can stay closer to that most of the time, right? So yeah,
Totally.
I was gonna say something more than that, but I can't remember, so I'm not.
Well, I'll just add, I hadn't heard that story specifically, but the concept of chop wood, carry water, before enlightenment, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Again, if you're in a low vibrational state and you hear that, you're like, well, what the fuck would be the point then? That's stupid. And I used to think that, like, I was like, I can't believe that's true. And I'm not saying I've been enlightened. I've had enlightenment experiences and the Satori and everything, but, like, at this point, everything is a spiral. So yes, I go back to the same experiences, quote unquote, same experiences, but I'm so different each time, even just a little bit, like you said, just a little bit more each time. And it is different. I'm doing, it's like you start to see the divine in what you thought was super mundane and whatever. Like, you can wash dishes, not a lot of people are chopping wood, carrying water anymore, but you could wash. I mean, not even a lot of people are washing dishes anymore. I like to wash dishes.
Do you?
Like,
Yeah, I kind of half it, Joshua. I kind of wash them before I put them in the dishwasher. People go, "What the fuck
there
are
you
you doing?
go.
You're fucking washing them and you put them in the dishwasher." I know it's
Everyone
crazy.
does that.
It's
I
crazy,
know
but I
so many
like it,
people do
right?
that.
All right. I used to be when I had the mansion, man. I didn't do anything. I was terrible, right? I didn't make my bed. I didn't wash dishes. I didn't cook anything, and neither did she, right? So we lived in this complete fantasy world. But now I actually like doing my laundry. Like you said, it's a meditation. You can switch your mind.
Yeah.
You can think about things or not. So, and anything can be a meditation, as you know, right? But when people talk
Yeah.
about wave and what's the point, I just say, look, have you ever woken up in the morning and felt really happy? Well, yeah, of course. Have you ever woken up in the morning and felt sad? There you go, right? It's a wave, right? And you might not even have a reason to be happy or sad because you're riding the wave, and it's okay. So if you didn't have the contrast, you've got to have contrast in life, because if you'd only ever been happy, how would you know? Can't know until you've been sad, and then you know what happiness is. How could you know hot if you didn't know cold? Up, down. You got to know both to be able to appreciate and understand them. And the further you go on the, and I call it the spectrum of insanity. We're all freaking insane, right? We live in the same world. So it just how wide is that spectrum for you, right? And the further you go out on the spectrum, you were talking about this in one of your podcasts. We're talking about breadth, not breath, not bread,
Brett.
breadth,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah,
more breadth
exactly.
you have as a soul, as a spirit, right? The more breadth you have, the more experiences you have, and therefore the more people you can relate to.
100%. And I find that my experience of sadness, grief, frustration is different. It's a different flavor because I'm in less resistance and less projection of it being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And actively practicing that change, just that alone will change the experience of sadness, grief, frustration, even like low energy, which used to me, I was so associated my low physical energy, which is everything fucking sucks. Like I just hated life. Like
Yeah.
everything was shit.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm like, how can I dance with this? How is this going to show up in my sessions with clients? Like, I'm not Mr. I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm perfect, all these things. Like, what is the energy of support with this frequency of grief or frustration or blahness, just like whateverness? Life becomes much richer and things are born out of those states, and we're not just waiting for happiness, we're not just waiting for expansion, we're making art and experience out of contraction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, all the emotions are valid. There's a purpose for them all, right? Uh,
Exactly.
Instead of what we tend to do societally, whatever, I don't know what that word is. You know what I mean, right?
And new age spirituality,
Yeah,
it's like
they judge
only
it. Yeah,
love and light, only joy.
yeah, right. Spread light and pack love, or one of the two. Anyway, yeah. So when you experience it, let it the fuck out. Because when you let it out, you're not containing it, you're not holding it in the cells of your body, which guarantees you're going to experience more of it, right? So what
Yeah.
happens is over time, it'll still happen, but you'll attract it less and less. And then
Hmm.
those, if you do get angry, it'll be like you just said, it won't be as intense. It'll be, what you call it, a different flavor, right? Different type, right? And you won't be
Hmm.
to it as much, right? You'll be going, no, just got angry. Then it's been a long time since I got angry, right? And you
That
start to,
literally just happened to me of like, wow, it's been a long time since I felt rage and it
yeah,
came up and it was just
yeah,
like, wow, this is interesting versus like, it's a negative emotion. It's bad.
yeah. Yeah, it's like anything, right? I was just trying to think of another analogy, right? You know, um, and this might not be the right analogy, but if you play a game, let's say a sport, right, for a long time, you're probably going to become pretty good at it, right? But if then you don't play the sport for a long time, you're not good at it anymore, right? So these things are things that become part of your daily routine, right? Like you probably have certain things you do when you wake up, probably meditate, maybe go work out, maybe, have a healthy juice. That's what I do. I don't think he probably does the same thing. You think everybody does the same thing as you. But anyway, you get my point. And I get benefits from all that. Sometimes you don't realize the benefit because you've been doing it for so long. So then you start to even question it. Well, does that really benefit me? Maybe I won't do it for a while. And then you see, right? Yeah, it did benefit me, right?
Be like,
Then
oh
you go back
shit,
and
I
do it.
gotta I gotta get back in the gym.
I got to get back in there, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to circle back to you shared about how writing this book liberated you because you it's like you spoke the things that you were holding in or felt shame around or resistance to share. And once you do something as big as putting it all out there in a book or, even social media, it's like it's out there. You're
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Um, you're a much more liberated, I imagine, holistic person, and not as many of your shadows are creating, uh unfun or unhappy life circumstances, what we call fate. Um, I'm curious who you were before that. That
Yeah.
like, like tell me how fucked up you were before.
Well, when I was a kid, I was totally fucked up, man. I got into so much trouble. Some of it really serious trouble. Um, I was the um, I was a rebel that thought they had a cause, but I didn't. But I thought I did. Right. Um,
Me too.
anyway,
That's what my dad used to call me, rebel without a cause.
yeah, right, right. So, and I was, man. I mean, I did not have a good relationship with my father. I could have, if you'd have said you hate your dad, I would have said yes. But you really don't, but you just think you do, right, at the time, because you're so angry at them, right? So all I ever wanted to do when I was a kid was run away from home. And I did. I ran away 8 times, but they kept catching me and bringing me back. So I was carrying all this rage, anger. I mean, when I went to bed, I used to bang my head on the pillow, making a weird noise until I was exhausted and fell asleep. That's how much anger I was carrying.
Mm.
And that's just compressing that energy inside of me. And that's, one of the reasons why you can have a very powerful spiritual breakthrough, because you're putting all that pressure in there. And so I got, I got put in an asylum, right? Because I loved everybody, right? It wasn't like I hated. I wasn't doing violent things or anything, but apparently at the time I was having a spiritual breakthrough. So what happened was, in the end, they gave me electric. It's called ECT, electric convulsive therapy, which means they put electricity on your head until you convulse. And somebody thought that'd be good. It was like putting leeches on people, sucking the blood out of them. It gets all the poison out. I don't know, but anyway, and
So,
that.
well, let
that
me just ask you, what were you, what was happening? Like, why did they, like, it's a little vague that like you were just loving everyone they threw you in there. Like, what was
okay, okay.
actually happening?
I'm trying to keep it short, but yes, okay. You want me to dig in, right? So what happened? Fine. So what happened was, so I went into mania, right? And when you're in
Mm.
mania, most people don't know this. You really do become extraordinary. You can pull things off that you just couldn't when normally, right? Number one, you can manifest things. Number two, you can get other people to do things. Your powers of persuasion are insane, right? But you are also insane, right? So anyway, so what was happening to me? Uh, my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Listen, don't let him out. Take him home and keep him inside," right? So my mom took me home, put me in the bedroom, and of course I escaped in the 5 minutes. I was gone, right, in my car. So then I go out and I decide I want to open a nightclub. I ended up talking to the DJ of the largest nightclub in the town where I grew up. I convinced him that he was going to be my DJ. I found the guy who owned the premises that I wanted to move the nightclub to, and he agreed to give me a contract without paying him for 6 months when we opened the club. And the landlord had sent me the lease. Anyway, so I'm just having a blast. I'm as high as a kite. My friends are trying to bring me down. Not going to happen. Then I hear, uh, so I hear that this woman who runs a brothel in the town where I live wants to meet me, right? So I said, great, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Where else are we going to go? So we go to this brothel. I ended up staying there for a week, right, with this woman. Then the next thing, I'm driving across a bridge, it's two-way traffic, on the wrong side of the road doing 100 miles an hour. I finally get back to my parents at 3 o'clock that morning, and I tell them that I'm Jesus Christ, and there's going to be stigmata, and there's going to be blood on my hands in 5 minutes. So it was a pretty good experience and a pretty good night. So
Okay,
then
so we're
they
getting
took, so
some
then
of
they
the
took me,
details
they
of
get me,
the.
what you said
Yeah.
details, right? What was I
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, yeah. I wanted something, like just
Something, just not that
besides
much.
just loving everyone. I was like, well, there's got to be something that somebody
Yeah, yeah,
relates to
yeah.
of like
So I was
this
high
this
as a kite.
spiritual psychosis. Yeah.
As high as a kite. So I get to the, they put me in it was I call it an insane asylum. It was a mental institution, right? And of course,
Right.
they've got me all banded up to the chair and all this stuff, right? So they gave me all these therapies and drugs, right, including electroconvulsive therapy. My point is, they got me down until I was totally depressed, and then they said, "Okay, you're fine now. You can go home." So what I said to me is, "Wait a minute. I came in here feeling great. You send me home feeling terrible, right? And that's normal." So I spent 4 years in depression. Couldn't shake it, right? Um, so that created the pattern. And what I was diagnosed with, which I think you wanted me to get to, maybe, it was manic depression, which they call bipolar now, right? Which again, if you think about it, is a reflection of my life: super highs, super lows. So that happened for me, right? And that gave me these experiences of I can get through anything. I can get through anything. I thought probably for 3 years, Joshua, that it would never end. But I stayed with it, and in the end, it did end. So now when I think about taking a risk or doing something, yeah, it might hurt, might have some problems, but I know I'll get through it. I know now I will get through it. I know I have that resilience. Does that make sense? So again, the gift in it,
Definitely.
I gain resilience out of it, which has helped me tremendously in my life. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious, some of your backstory kind of going into the book, what I imagined, because you said, it liberated you. I imagine there was a lot of your personality that you didn't share with anybody, and I'm curious, like, you could speak to a little bit of that, but also, what are the problems you experience from that suppression and, like, what you noticed before and after,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
releasing the book?
sure. So first of all, the shame. I mean, I would
Mhm.
never tell people that story before I wrote the book. Nobody, never in a million years. Because what are people going to think? What are they going to say? When I was growing up, and I could go out and get a job, and you fill out an application that says, "Have you ever had mental illness?" What am I going to say? I'm not going to say yeah, right? You're not going to get the job, obviously, right? So you got to hide it. And why is the question there? Because it's shameful, right? Something you can't have mental illness, right? It's frowned upon. What do you call that when you um, judged by society? And there's a name I can't think of it. Um, uh, you're an outlier. You're an outlier, not in the outlier that Malcolm Gladwell talks about, but you're an outcast. An outcast. There you go. All right. So
Outcast.
yeah, there you go. You're an outcast. So and then you build a life around an identity that doesn't include that. So how do you just suddenly come out and start telling people that? These are the things that go through your mind. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying, for me, that's how I felt. And so that and some other experiences, which are detailed in the book, so I won't go into too much detail, but the detail in the book of humiliating things that happened for me, but I used to think happened to me, that I didn't want other people to know about me. I mean, simple things like, I come from England, man. We're very conservative, right? I mean, nobody knew I had a sex room in my house. I would never tell anybody I had a sex room or what went on in there, right? I would never tell anybody that in a million years. And when I'm writing it, holy shit, this is like, I'm really putting it out. People are going to go, I didn't know that. I didn't even know there was a sex room in your house. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, I've had one for years, right? Uh,
Yeah, like, I even invite people listening, like, when you hear somebody say, "I have a sex room," like, just notice what happens in your body. I even notice in myself this, like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "Where does that come from?" Like, I consider myself so liberated, but there's a part of all of us, if we're honest, that, like,
yeah,
we've been so conditioned
yeah,
around sex. It's like the
yeah.
thing that we've been the most conditioned around. So yeah, I just wanted to name that to create more of a shared resonance in who's ever listening.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. So again,
No.
if I just went to my neighbor's house a few weeks ago. I walk into the living room. She's got a fucking stripper pole in the living room. I'm like, good for you. You know what I mean? She goes, well, I only use it. And shut the fuck up. You got a stripper pole in the front room. You don't have to
Every
justify that.
everyone my yeah, everyone my age has a stripper pole now. It's a whole new culture. So
Totally, man. And I think it might be going to be in the Olympics. I don't know, but it should be. I mean, what they can do on that fucking pole is amazing, right? Not just women, but men.
right?
There's men do it too, man. I mean, they're really good.
Totally.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So again, she's put it in a living room. I mean, it's fine now. It's so much more accepted, because it's part of who we are. We're animalistic. We're animals, right? So let that animalistic nature come out. However it wants to be for you, you know? It doesn't have to be a stripper pole or a sex room. But, and I write about this in the book, right? It's happening anyway, right? There's going to be 20 letters in it before long, right? And it's part of the conscious evolution, because I'm an Aquarian, right? So we're very future thinking. We can see the future like a mile away, right? So, but it also has been put in front of everybody. We're becoming more androgynous.
Mm-hmm.
We're accepting all parts of our sexuality, right? So that I would just use the analogy in terms of emotion or feeling or, being angry one minute and then happy the next. Well, 1 minute you could want to be heterosexual, the next minute you want to be transsexual. You can change. That's how malleable it is. So you say, what are you going to wear today? Pants or a dress? You know what I mean? And it's fine. It's fine, right? So we're going through a revolution, man. I mean, and of course, the boomers are not happy about it because they've got their perspective of how it should be. There's a man or there's a woman. I mean, shut the fuck up, But that's because that's where they are, right? And sometimes I think to myself, well, that's why people die when they get old, because they become so inflexible. They can't accept the new world, the new reality, and they're taken out, right? Me, on the other hand, I'm going to live till I'm 500. I'm just kidding. I don't want to live till 500. But I know I'm going to have a long life because I take care of my body and I take care of my life. And I do want to live a long time, Sometimes it's more of a
Beautiful.
choice than people realize, right?
More of what?
It's more of a choice than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he die so young? Well, he used to sit on a couch and eat pizza all day for 20 years. What do you think the body's going to do? Eventually, it's going to give up, right?
Yeah, and that's the more obvious, and then the less obvious is like, he was emotionally rigid about everything. He didn't adapt with the changing times. He didn't, So, like you just said, we become rigid. That reduces energy and information and water that moves through our tissues, and we dry out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it.
Disease.
Dis-ease, yes. We create it.
Dis-ease.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, is there anything else you want to share to kind of cap off this wide-ranging, fun and interesting conversation that we just went on
Yeah.
together?
Yeah. Well, you mean a profound statement at the end? Not really. Well, nothing that we haven't already said in one way. I mean, I think you and I both have a similar goal for people, just to be who you really are, not be afraid of that, not be ashamed of anything you've ever done or said. Forgive yourself, number one, because we think there's somebody else to forgive. And just like the book Little Soul in the Sun, there's no one to forgive, So let it go. That's going to be huge. Be vulnerable a little bit, I mean, do it in stages. Don't just come out overnight and share everything you've ever done using a bullhorn and say, listen, man, I fucked your what? No, just, you do it in stages, and just begin to let it go. And that's what you do, right? With your healing, your EEE and the genius frequency.
Frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a journey, though. Just don't put pressure on yourself to do it overnight. Just say like you say, I'm gonna commit to meditating. You're not gonna do one meditation and suddenly be enlightened, right? It's just not gonna happen. And people say, I can't meditate. I can't clear my mind. Of course you can't fucking clear your mind. It's going at fucking 1,000 miles an hour and you want to sit down for 5 minutes and stop it. It's not going to happen, right? You're going to have to practice it, right? Over time. And the first time you do it for 5 minutes. It's going to feel like you did it for 5 hours. You go, is it not 5 minutes yet? Right? And then the next thing you don't even keep track of time and you don't know how long it's gone. It's like anything. It's a practice. So all the things we've talked about are practice for your spirit, for your soul, for yourself, and put yourself first, which sounds selfish, but it isn't. I use the analogy, and everybody uses this analogy, right? If you're on an airplane, the oxygen goes out, the mask comes down, who's do you put on? You're not running through the fucking plane trying to put everybody else's on, right? You're going to put your own on. Otherwise, you're going to be help anybody. And so the same thing applies here. And like you said, the same thing when you're going to be relationship. Get ready. If you really want to attract the person you desire, be that person. Do the work on yourself so you won't fuck it up, right? And you're going to give yourself a much bigger percentage chance of having a successful relationship. Will it last a lifetime? Probably not. Because no matter what, you're going to grow in different directions, right? Suddenly different things are going to appeal to you. So give each other the space for that without feeling they're rejecting you or they don't love you anymore. Sometimes you've got to love someone enough to let them go.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. Appreciate it. Was a nice summation of some of the themes that we traversed. Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, it's been a pleasure and a real honor and a joy. And I hope that we can grab a coffee or something in St. Pete, Sarasota. I can't believe how close we are
Sit
currently.
there reading this erotic sexual romance in the middle of St. Petersburg, like, what the fuck are those guys?
Comparing notes.
And the thing I did want to mention, and you mentioned it earlier, there is a link that I sent for you and your listeners or viewers for them to get the first. I don't know how you ended up with it, but the first 3 chapters of the book for free, right? Then if anybody's interested in going deeper, obviously you go pretty deep, but we do it in different ways. And sometimes you resonate with one person, not another, so that's fine. There's plenty for everybody. But I also have provided a link for anybody who's interested in going deeper with me. There's a free consultation, I think it's 30-minute consultation that they can have with me and see if we resonate.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. I'll send out a newsletter that has those links. So far 10 out of 10 recommend the book. If you want something spiritual that's not spiritual, that's not like classically spiritual, but like at its depths,
you have to
it's
dig
spiritual.
deep. It's down deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you really get to spirituality, is when you get to the nitty-gritty human and understand its depths. And so I love that. And I think that's all I got. Thank you so much, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me on the Soul Body Wholeness podcast. If you like this episode, you can support the journey by rating and subscribing wherever you listen. I invite you to follow me on Instagram at Soul Body Wholeness for more insights and to stay up to date with my current offerings. And if you feel called to work with me directly, I invite you to visit my website at www.soulbodywholeness.life. I offer somatic alchemy sessions and soul purpose initiation journeys that awaken your inner healer, reconnect you to your innate wholeness, and ignite your soul's deepest purpose. I invite you to carry this resonance with you as you move throughout your day and return anytime you need a reminder of your courage, your wholeness, and your light. Blessings, old friend.